This podcast is an invitation to feel and experience the souls of famous old Hollywood homes and to have an in-depth journey to the areas where they're located through interviews with longtime residents. Either you're a fan of old Hollywood in Los Angeles, planning to have a vacation, or, an even bigger step, considering a certain area for your future home. This is your opportunity to receive valuable information and insightful advice you won't find anywhere else.
Hello, and welcome to my podcast. Are you in the mood for California? Today, we'll feel and experience Tustin, followed by an interview with Krizan, who will share how Southern California shaped her early sense of storytelling and her creative voice.
I grew up with oranges and sunshine, and when we would take our dog for a walk, we would just drive south down, which was a very quick drive, down to a train track. And it was lined with eucalyptus trees. We'd have to drive through some strawberry fields. And this train track was lined with eucalyptus trees, and we would walk our dog. So when I think of my childhood, I think of a lot of nature, and I think of rolling hills going out to the beach because we went to the beach a lot. It was a quick drive. It was, say, 30 minutes or less to get out to the beach. And there was nothing along that drive. It was just hills. The hills were a little bit dusty. And then we would get out to, say, Laguna Beach or Newport Beach, and we would have to drive through little community to get there, but then we would be on these beautiful little beaches. So when I think of my childhood, I think of a lot of nature, and I think of the ocean.
Masha Korpacheva is a California-based realtor and a member of the National Association of Realtors in Los Angeles. She's an advocate for selling and buying homes with soul and practicing mindfulness in real estate. With master's degrees in spiritual psychology and linguistics, Masha brings all of her skills to work with her clients. An intuit and empath, she has touched many lives with her outstanding ability to see beyond the visible and helping to come to better understanding of issues and their resolutions. An adventurous world traveler, from climbing Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania to exploring the Galapagos Islands, Masha has a particular passion for the City of Angels. Having landed in this paradise and adopted it as her home, she's been sharing old Hollywood stories since 2007. In the mood for California, feel the soul of old Hollywood.
And now, are you ready to feel and experience Tustin? There is something quiet about Tustin that you don't immediately notice. Something that feels older than the streets, older than the homes, almost as if the land remembers. Long before it became a city, this area was part of vast Mexican land grants, including Rancho Santiago de Santa Ana. There was a hill the native people called Catuctu, a place of refuge. Later, the Spanish would call it Cerrito de las Ranas, the Hill of Frogs. Today, we know it simply as Red Hill, still standing, still watching. Tustin itself began in 1868, not as a grand vision, but as a hopeful one. A carriage maker from Northern California, Columbus Tustin, together with his partner Nelson Stafford, purchased about 1,300 acres of this land and set out to create a town. But it was not easy. The land was beautiful, filled with sycamores, wildflowers, and open space, but people were slow to come. To encourage settlers, Tustin began giving away lots to anyone willing to build a home. It was less a business plan and more an act of faith. For a time, it seemed the town might never become what he imagined. The railroad, which often determined the fate of early California towns, chose nearby Santa Ana instead. Growth came slowly, almost reluctantly, and yet Tustin endured. By the late 19th century, the land began to find its rhythm through agriculture. First, apricot orchards flourished very successfully, and later came citrus groves, rows of trees stretching across the landscape, shaping both the economy and the identity of the town. If you walk through Old Town Tustin today, you can still feel those beginnings. The area along Main Street and El Camino Real holds buildings that date back to the 1880s, simple structures that once housed blacksmith shops, grocery stores, and early community life. One of the most notable is the Arts Building, built in 1914 by the founder's son. It began as a general store, serving as a social center for the surrounding ranches, a place where people didn't just buy things, but met, spoke, and belonged. Tustin officially became a city in 1927, still small, still quiet, with fewer than 1,000 residents. Then, like much of Southern California, it changed after World War II. Orchards slowly gave way to neighborhoods, and open land turned into the communities we know today. And yet, something remains. They still call it the City of Trees, a name that reflects both its natural beginnings and the vision of its founder, who planted eucalyptus, citrus, and magnolia trees across the land. When I think about Tustin, it doesn't feel like a place that was built quickly or loudly. It feels like a place that grew patiently, imperfectly, honestly. A place that didn't chase greatness, but quietly became something lasting. And here we are. Welcome to Tustin. It is so wonderful to have Kim Krizan here with me. Kim Krizan is an American writer, actress, and educator, best known for originating the story and characters in the Before trilogy with her writing on Before Sunrise and Before Sunset, the latter earning the Academy Award and Writers Guild nominations for Best Adapted Screenplay. She first emerged from the independent film scene in Austin, appearing in Slacker, Dazed and Confused, and Waking Life. Beyond film, Krizan is the author of Original Sins and Spy in the House of Anaïs Nin, where she explores identity, creativity, and the inner lives of women through both writing and archival research. Based in Los Angeles, she teaches screenwriting and creative writing and continues to mentor writers through her online class, The Magic Hour, fostering a deeply intuitive and human approach to storytelling. Kim will share with us what it was like growing up in Tustin, a place with quiet roots and a deep sense of history, and how Southern California, with its unique blend of landscapes, cultures, and imagination, shaped her early sense of storytelling and her creative voice. Hello, Kim.
Hello, Masha. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Now that I have you on air and we're going to have this wonderful conversation, so it's just incredible. I feel wonderful.
I'm looking forward to talking to you.
Well, me too. Me too. You cannot imagine. And you have quite a story, Kim, and I cannot wait to share it with the listeners. And let's begin with your upbringing. And you were born in Hawthorne and raised in the rolling hills of Tustin, where your childhood, as you expressed, smelled like eucalyptus trees. and you found solace in books and imagination. So could you share with us, how did growing up in Southern California shape your early sense of storytelling and creative voice?
You know, it's interesting. When I think of my childhood, I think of a lot of sunshine, and I do think of nature, even though I was born in a suburb of Los Angeles called Hawthorne, which at the time when I was born in the 1960s was a bit of a surfer town. It changed after that, and now it's even going through more changes. But my parents moved down to Tustin in Orange County, and it was the southernmost tip of Orange County when they moved there. It was before Orange County kind of extended down. It was on the edge of all of the agricultural crops when we moved there. So it was strawberry fields and orange groves, lots and lots and lots of orange groves. And the first house that my parents bought actually was right on the edge of orange groves, and we had orange trees in our yard. So I grew up with oranges and sunshine. And when we would take our dog for a walk, we would just drive south down, which was a very quick drive down to a train track. And it was lined with eucalyptus trees. We'd have to drive through some strawberry fields. And this train track was lined with eucalyptus trees, and we would walk our dog. So when I think of my childhood, I think of a lot of nature, and I think of rolling hills going out to the beach, because we went to the beach a lot. It was a quick drive. It was, say, 30 minutes or less to get out to the beach. And there was nothing along that drive. It was just hills. The hills were a little bit dusty. And then we would get out to, say, Laguna Beach or Newport Beach, and we would have to drive through a little community to get there, but then we would be on these beautiful little beaches. So when I think of my childhood, I think of a lot of nature, and I think of the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we drove the other direction, we would be in the mountains. If we drove in another direction, we would be in the desert. So I think of nature, but I had a little bit of a craving for the city life and for something a little bit more extreme, because there was kind of a clean quality to Southern California. And I thought, oh, it might be interesting to live in a gritty city or a farm or something like that. So it made me want to read a lot of books about those things.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And you know, Kim, the way you just described it, I saw you literally in the middle of a painting, because all of these phrases that you used, they were like brushes, you know, and like you used this very colorful palette. No wonder you must have very impressionistic feelings about California from your childhood, the way you mentioned it to me.
I really do have impressionistic feelings. And, you know, a big part of my childhood was watching surfers at the beach. And I spent so much of my childhood wading in the ocean. For some reason, there were bigger waves back then. I think maybe the sand has changed, but we would get out in that water, and then you'd have to be one with nature.
Mm-hmm.
And with time, I came to think of people who live in California, I think, have more of a connection, maybe with like the Eastern world, with Asia or something, because we sort of have this attitude of going with the flow that I don't really find on the East Coast, say, of America, where they are more intellectual, they're more verbal and argumentative. And it seems like on the West side, we're more go with the flow people.
Yes, that's very true. And I know that at some point in your life, in the 80s and 90s, you moved to Austin. And do you think this theory that you have, or this impression that you now have about California, it became evident to you after you came back from Austin? Or do you think you were aware of it while living here before you moved?
I think I became aware of it after I moved away. Because I did meet people from say the East Coast. They were far more verbal. They wanted to argue points about culture. And I just didn't find that so much in California. I found people were more inclined to sort of accept certain things. When I went to Austin, I had no idea when I was moving to Texas how hot it was. It was unbelievably hot. And I kind of understood a lot of the positive points about Los Angeles because the weather is so comfortable year round. When I went to Texas, it was just blazing, blazing hot for a few months of the year, almost to the point where I just couldn't take it. And it has less variety in the land. And so it's more of a flat sort of landscape. And in its own way, it was very beautiful because they had beautiful thunderstorms and gorgeous, gorgeous wildflowers. But I really thought that when I came back to Los Angeles, that oh my gosh, it's like people seemed more calm and the weather was not oppressive in Los Angeles. It is not oppressive as it can be in other parts of the world. So there's just this sort of peace and acceptance that I find people have in Los Angeles.
Yes, yes. So true. No, I can absolutely see that. Yes. And Kim, what about your artistic sense, your sense of storytelling, your creative voice? Because you come through as a very aware person, someone who really understands herself. So how do you think these experiences from your childhood in California, then you moved to Austin, Texas, and then coming back to California, how all of this affected your creative voice?
I think traveling is the thing that really helps you understand who you are and what you've come from. So I don't think I fully understood Los Angeles until I moved away from Los Angeles and then traveled. I traveled throughout the United States. I've been to all 50 states. And I thought that if I did that, I would understand my country better. But I also traveled around the world. I traveled by train in Europe and England, and then I've also seen some other non-European continents. And I think that traveling helps you understand your culture. So I understood a lot more about myself, I think, when I went to Austin, because there were little quirks that, for example, there's a slightly faster pace to career issues in Los Angeles. People in Los Angeles, they're dreamers. Dreamers come to Los Angeles. And my parents were both farm kids who came from the Midwest. They came from South Dakota, small, very small towns. And they came because they wanted bigger things. And I suppose they had dreams. And then they did, to a large degree, achieve their dreams because they ended up traveling the world. My dad had a good career as an engineer that he probably could not have had in South Dakota because he had a much, bigger territory here to do his job. And when I moved to Austin, I realized I was functioning at a faster pace as far as my ambitions and dreams went. A lot of people, Texas is just so hot that a lot of people enjoy sitting around and drinking beer, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But I didn't really understand that because I came from a place where people had dreams and really go out of their way to achieve their dreams, and they don't sit around and drink beer so much as the people, So I think I understood something about myself when I moved away.
Interesting. And also, Kim, I sense that there is a lot of freedom in your heart, in the way you express yourself, and in the way your characters feel and behave. And do you think this freedom also came from your own personal, very conscious choice to break free from your childhood experience of being exposed to Jehovah's Witnesses, and then breaking away and moving to Austin and creating your own life there? So what can you say on the topic of freedom?
That's an interesting question. So Orange County is in many ways a conservative place, politically conservative and sometimes religiously conservative. It went through a big religious revival in the 60s and 70s. And in fact, Los Angeles has had through the decades has had a lot of people come historically to the city to start churches, their own churches. My mother I think she experienced a kind of a loneliness because she was a small town kid, and there was so much openness in our community, where it was a big community, a large, hundreds of thousands of people. And so I think she was looking for a group, people to belong with. And so she got involved. Jehovah's Witnesses came to our door when she was a kid. It was a time, when I was a kid, it was a time back then when door-to-door salesmen came to the door, sometimes to sell, maybe utensils or makeup or to sell musical equipment or instruments. And Jehovah's Witnesses came to the door, and they convinced her to go to their church because she was looking for a church. The church was very, very restrictive. It was a very conservative, very oppressive church. And I was 11, and she told me to go with her. She needed me to go with her, she said. My father told me to make her happy by going with her. And so there was a real juxtaposition between the freedom of Los Angeles and Orange County and her church, which taught that, there was a God who was very judgmental. And so I think that restriction that I was being taught it was very hard for me. It was oppressive for me. And so the only place I could find freedom really was in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that helped with my creativity and my imagination.
Yes, yes. And now that you're sharing this, I have this very strong feeling that, in this story and in characters of Before Sunrise movie, two people are also looking for this human connection. But in their case, this connection is also infused with freedom, with being who they are, with exploring who they are just as they go. And again, they need this connection and they go for it. So how would you say, in your own perspective, this experience that you just shared and this freedom that you're also looking for affected your approach to this intimacy and dialogue in your writing?
My experience with traveling is that you can meet people and you can get away from them if you don't enjoy the connection. So whereas, say, if you live in a community or you have a church or you go into school, you may have to deal with the same people every day. And maybe you have to slowly but surely figure out how to relate to them. But if you're traveling and you meet somebody, you can cut off the relationship quickly. So when I would meet people traveling, I could maybe have a conversation, and if I felt like I related to them, I liked them, I could pursue more. But if I felt that I didn't, I could make an excuse and get out of there. And so I felt that when Richard Linklater and when he asked me to co-write a movie with him, all he told me was that he wanted to write a boy meets girl movie. And I told him that I had traveled by train and had met interesting people traveling. And my attitude is that you have nothing to lose. If you meet somebody you like, you can be yourself. You can show who you are. And if they say something that makes you believe that you're not accepted or you're not understood, you can then cut it off and say, oh gosh, I have to get off at this stop and, leave. So it gives you a kind of freedom when you're traveling.
Right. And I just had a thought that, yes, there is this transient feeling when you're on a train or on a plane or on a bus, right? But in some way, us humans being on the earth and knowing that at some point we'll have to get off this train that we call life. So in some way, our entire life is transient. It's just that we probably take it too seriously, while we're in the middle of it. And had we let go of this feeling, we could probably be more open and free, just like the characters on the train in Before Sunrise.
Oh, that's a beautiful way to put it, is that I think you understood the main metaphor of the train. It's like we're on a ride and we will get off the ride at some point and we don't know exactly when, but life is change. And if we strain against that too much, we're going to be unhappy. So it's better to go for the ride and to accept the changes and accept that it's all transient.
Yes. Kim, and you now teach screenwriting and creative writing, and I cannot even imagine what a gift it is to your students. And I want to ask you, what do you hope your students will take away from your classes beyond technique? How do you approach your teaching?
Well, I believe human beings are storytelling animals, and we're all experts at story, whether we know it or not, because we've all been listening to stories, watching stories, telling stories our entire lives. But the main thing about storytelling is it gives us meaning. And I think it's very healing for people to tell their own stories because we go through things that are sometimes hard and painful and confusing. And if we can put experience into a story, it helps us contain the feeling and extract something nourishing from the experience. And so I find that a lot of my students have been through, well, all of my students have been through things. And if they can even write one scene that maybe encapsulates something that they feel or they've been through or they've watched, it can be very healing for them. It might be, something that happened in their family or something painful they felt or they want and they feel that they can't get it. And just to write a scene about it helps them to understand what they've gone through and also helps them communicate it to other people. So storytelling is just very healing.
Yes. And it's almost as if it allows you to see yourself from, a different perspective, rather than when you're in the middle of it, you can suddenly become an observer, almost in the same way when you realized what California really was for you when you moved away from it.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Distance, that's right. Objectivity and distance help not only you understand what you've come from, but then when you tell a story, helps you understand what you're grappling with as a human being.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so very true. Kim, you have this incredible quote that you once said: "I write so the endangered thoughts roaming naked and vulnerable through the misty jungles of my mind aren't slain by the guns of practical living." So, how do you sustain a life that makes room for those vulnerable, intangible ideas, especially in an industry that often values product over process?
Well, I think it's very helpful to keep a private journal that you do not necessarily show other people so that you can write down little truths that you feel that pass through you that are sometimes really hard to grasp because you're trying to arrive at what it is you really think and really feel. And so I keep a journal that I hide it away because if I thought that other people would read it, that would make me probably change what I wrote because I don't, want people to know sometimes like my real feelings or thoughts. I'm still trying to figure them out, or maybe I think someone would be mad, or maybe I think it hurts somebody's feelings, or maybe I think, someone would judge me. So I like to keep a journal and just write down the main things going through my mind at a particular, like if I do it regularly, it's just what's going through my mind that day. And maybe it's whatever memories coming up or whatever made me mad that day, or it could be anything. And it nails it down in a tangible way so that later I could look at it. And often what I find is that it'll take me a while to say what I want to say. Like I'll circle around, and then finally I come out with it. And it's that I was trying to figure out how to say it. I couldn't figure it out. So I feel like these things are passing through and I've got to nail them down when I can, or else they'll slip away.
Yes, that's beautiful. It's almost like a process of you studying yourself.
That's right. Because I think that we do study ourselves. I believe that. I think that we try to figure out who we are our whole lives.
Yes.
And then maybe at the very end we figure it out, but I don't know. Like we're mysteries even to ourselves.
I know. And there is a quote Marcus Aurelius once said: "Unexamined life is not worth living." And it seems like the whole sense of life is for us to understand what it is like to be human.
Exactly. We're trying to that's a good way to put it. We're trying to figure out what it is to be human. And we don't have the answer. We have questions, but we don't have the answer yet.
Yes. And maybe we will only realize it when we're gone, from the physical plane, and then there will be the answer because we'll be removed from it.
Exactly. I think that could be it because I don't know what happens when we die, but maybe we pass through something where we see what the animal that we were on this planet. I don't know, but that will be interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very interesting. And my last question to you, Kim. Looking ahead, what kind of legacy do you want your work to leave? Maybe not even in terms of awards or recognition, but in how it affects people's capacity to feel, think, and connect with themselves and others.
Well, I think you used the main word, which is connect, because I don't think it's that easy to connect. And I would like to believe that I can help others feel seen and heard. And that connection, I think, is something we attempt to do with one another is we attempt to understand one another and attempt to communicate and attempt to understand our place on earth and in this time and in this, this human form, as you were saying. And I would like to believe that I help people in a positive way. I really would like to leave a positive legacy because I think it's much easier to be destructive than it is to be creative. It takes so much more to build something than it does to knock something down. And you have to be brave to do, like you coming from the Soviet Union and, me getting out of a cult. I mean, these are hard things to do, but I think that they take a lot of strength and bravery. And if we can do that with ourselves and we can help others through talking about our experiences and listening to others, I think that helps others be connected to themselves and to the positive in life. There's plenty of negative, but I think that you and I have we've found positive through things we did, and we know that it's out there for everybody. And so I'm hoping that we have positive legacies that make others feel understood and heard and seen.
Yes, because probably it is only through this connection that we have with each other, even when we think we don't. But this is when we know that we are one whole, connected consciousness, that we're not really separate. We're just all together in it.
Absolutely. I think that is it. 100%. We are one big consciousness. And the more we try to be a positive force, I think that reverberates through the vibrations go a long way.
Yes. So very true. Well, Kim, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being such an incredible positive force, through your writing, through your spirit, through your presence, and for inspiring others, including me in a very big way, to be more present, to be more connected with ourselves. So thank you so much for doing this incredible, very hard creative work. Thank you.
My pleasure, Masha. It's been so much fun talking to you. I'm really happy to talk to you. So I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Kim. And I hope this conversation will be inspiring to so many listeners, writers or not, who would be willing to look deeper into themselves and, see this freedom and connection and love, within themselves. Thank you so much.
I love it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to feel and experience Tustin and the quiet spirit of Southern California with my special guest, Kim Krizan. If you enjoy my podcast, In the Mood for California, please sign up for future episodes at your preferred platform and please leave your feedback. I really appreciate your time and support. You can also follow me on Instagram at In the Mood for California and check out my website www.inthemoodforcalifornia.com. Next time, our journey will take us into a completely different world, one shaped by longing, resilience, and the lives of the white Russian emigres in Los Angeles. I'm looking forward to seeing you there.
In the Mood for California. Feel the soul of old Hollywood.